Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review 3,000 Years of Longing. So, this movie kind of comes off as this movie that wants to tell you a story. And they end up using both Alethea and the Jinn to go on and give you all of these stories. And so, Alethea gives us some backstory of her character, and then the Jinn kind of takes over and is to give you a huge history of him going from sultan to king to random woman who is to fall for the king, to inventors, to this and that and whatever have you, to, of course, this leads the Jinn right back to Alethea, where he is to now hope that this woman is going to go on and do these three wishes and send the Jinn on his way to be free. So, because we come to find out for one reason or another, the Jinn is to consistently get stuck in this bottle, to need to go on and find the next person who is to go on and do these three wishes and bang them all out, so this guy can finally be free, because he has been waiting in this bottle for far too long. And we of course have Alethea that is to need to know how is it that the Jinn is to be in this bottle for such a long time and like not go insane, because the Jinn can't even sleep. So like there rules out some time of this character that could honestly just kind of sleep away certain days. But so we find out that Alethea is to be this woman that is to be very content, and it doesn't feel like she needs anything from the Jinn besides like, hey, tell me this tale, tell me this story of yours, because I have nothing better to do but to listen. And so we then have Alethea that is to, by the end of this tale, possibly use her wishes, possibly not use her wishes. I'll go on into spoilers and I'll start mentioning what those wishes are. So with that said, how did I feel about this movie? I would have to go on and say that this movie is like, this movie really was not for me. Maybe it will be for somebody who likes this specific kind of film, but like, I honestly was to just say that this was a bad film because it just really wasn't like giving me anything that I was wowed about, or it just felt like this movie was something to kind of like casually watch in the background and not fully watch it and pay every single second to it. And plus, like, I couldn't really understand the characters because at certain points there were subtitled moments, of course, as well as also needing things to get explained to us in this film, so on and so forth. There was some hoops to jump through in this film, and like, I was like, I don't want to jump through those hoops. Like, this story is not good enough. It needs to have a different kind of spin or tale enough throughout every single story for me to like, oh man, this is like really like, everything feels like its own individual story instead of just lumped all together, to the point where I'm like, I can't tell the difference between so and so first character and second and third and fourth. Like I can't tell the difference between any of them because they all look the same, or they all just are to be characters that like aren't unique enough for me to have enjoyed this adventure. So with that said, so we go on into the beginning of this film, and I think it's I think let's just go into spoilers. Let's go into spoilers about this one. Let's double fly this bad boy up. At the end of the day, there is a bootleg version of this movie available that I would go on and tell people that there's a number of different apps that I've used in a number of different reviews. More than likely, if you go through a new released review, you'll see a plethora of different lists of apps that I've used over time fairly recently. And so that might lead you to go on and find this movie for absolutely free. Instead of going into a theater, you'll just watch a bootleg version that might not be all that crisp, but it's much better off to save your money and watch a movie through an app than in fact spending money to go into theater to watch a movie that is just isn't that good. So with that said, first off, you can go on to a number of apps in a Google Play Store and find certain equivalents of these apps that I'm going to list here. You can find an equivalent of Yes Movies in the Google Play Store. You can find an equivalent of 123 Movies, the blue one. You can go ahead and check those apps out. You can also go on and find an app called Box UHD. And so you can download all three of these apps and at some point go on and find this movie that you can watch absolutely free. More than likely, when this movie probably will soon come to premium access, then I would definitely recommend you pouncing on the fact, oh yeah, premium access, hey, I'm going to watch a really good version of this movie on an app that I can watch it for free. Because I'm assuming that this movie is going to quickly go to premium access. Because it should. I don't even know why it's in a theater. People must believe that this movie is really good for some weird reason, or like star power. I just don't get it. So, with that said, we have Alithea. Let's just break this down into spoilers. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time to spoil this movie. So we have Alithea. Alithea is to travel across the country because it seems that life is going so well for her that she seems to be very well-to-do. It seems that this girl is to be very well educated, so on and so forth. So it seems that Alithea, one time a year, is to go to this kind of book convention, and she meets up with these people that she has come to every year, so they know her. This hotel porter greets her and is to get her usual accommodations all set up. So we have Alithea that is to make her way through town to then find a unusual bottle that at first it's like, well, hey, that bottle seems to be very blackened and very scratched, and Alethea's like, well, no, I think that just shows character. And so Alethea's like, I like this and I think I'm gonna take it. As well as the way of Alithea going through here, she is to see these unusual visuals. She is to see this very short man that has these elvish-like ears, and we have Alithea that is to call him out as being some djinn, and if anybody that was to have seen this character besides her trying to steal her luggage, and they're like, well, no. So excuse me. So Alethea has this bottle, brings it in to her hotel room, takes a shower, and then decides, hey, I'm going to go on and try to open this bottle. I'm going to try to clean it off. And so all of a sudden, while Alethea is cleaning this, she all of a sudden cracks this thing open, and a djinn is to come out of it. The djinn is to seemingly be the entire size of this room. And so, I guess for comedic purposes, because we have Idris's foot that like lands into this door, and so Alethea is to notice this djinn in her room, and so we now have Alethea who's to try to figure out what's going on here, and so since she's well educated, she starts speaking in several different languages to find out that the djinn is to speak Greek. And so there's subtitles where they're speaking Greek together. And so Livy is to mention that she is, of course, educated in speaking Greek, even though when you look at her, it's like I guess she's to be very well read and whatever. So we start to have this djinn that at some point is to realize that someone is knocking at Alethea's door. And so we have the djinn that all of a sudden is to shrink in size and go into hiding. And so Alethea is to realize that this is some thing that she was supposed to get from these hotel people. So Alethea is to realize that the djinn is to seemingly back to a normal size, and so after it seems that the djinn has tried to understand the technology of this age, to understand TV, and understand who Einstein is, and wanting to pull Einstein from off of this television to want to give this to Alethea, if this, of course, is what Alethea wishes. The djinn is to also break down every single rule to Alethea that he, of course, cannot cross. Like, life and death, like, can't do that. A number of other things that he has to go on and break down throughout the rules of everything that this girl is to just be like, oh, okay, all right. As she's to also find out she's going to get 3 wishes, and after that, the genie will be free to do whatever he wants. So, Alethea is to agree to all the terms, and we have the djinn that is to now go on and ask Alethea, like, well, hey, what's your 3 wishes? And Alethea is like, well, I'm content. Like, I don't want for anything. And, like, the djinn is like, well, like, are you married? Like, are you a widow? Like, there has to be something. And Alethea is like, no. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm rich. I'm everything's working out. And the djinn is just like, oh my god, like, I have been through this far too often now. And so the djinn finally just has to break down and explain this whole journey, because it seems that this woman is to consume herself with books, and she loves a tale. So much so that Alethea is to mention that when she was a kid, she had this imaginary boy called Enzo that was to keep her company. And Alithia would go on and draw Enzo on this piece of paper and like imagine that she would go on and have him help her through the tough times and times when people would make fun of her. So Alithia had this imaginary friend named Enzo, and she doesn't go on and like wish that that character like becomes real. So, cause I'm sure you may not be able to have the genie pull something like that off. So, I guess for Alithia, that might have gone on and been like the first like person that she had ever loved that wasn't like a family member, and it was just some imaginary friend that she had. So now we have the Jinn that is to mention of his first love, and that of course is the Queen of Sheba. So we have the Jinn going on and telling Sheba, like whispering sweet nothings to her, like telling her like how great she is every day and how beautiful she is, and like every single thing that she could have ever wanted to hear. And he is consistently using his magic to figure out a way to please her in every possible way. And so all of a sudden we then go on and have this musician that ends up coming in. And this musician, I think, is to be King Solomon. And so all of a sudden this musician is playing this song, and Sheba is taking a liking to this man to the point of her having King Solomon go on to a number of impossible tasks, and this guy goes on and achieves every single one of them. To, of course, where one of the tasks is that Sheba wants King Solomon to tell her, like, what women want to hear. And so King Solomon is to go on and figure this out and tell her all of this. So after it seems that King Solomon is to do like these like 12 Herculean task kind of things, Sheba is to fall madly in love with this man, to the point of now the Jinn realizing that this man had stole his love from under him. And so we turn around and have King Solomon try to take over and imprison the Jinn in this bottle, as well as him going on and like cursing the Jinn, and so that he will never go on and like get out of this prison yet again, because no one is going to go on and find him, and so on and so forth. So we have the Jinn who waits for a long stretch of time. A number of things have passed, kingdoms have been demolished and rebuilt, to the point of us having a girl named Gulton, who is to be this girl who becomes infatuated with the Sultan's son, Mustafa. So Gulton is to find this bottle by kind of climbing this wall of rocks, and she trips and like the rock falls out, And so she ends up seeing this like kind of gold shiny piece looking out at her, so she breaks this thing because she's like, heck yeah, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna try to make some money off of this because I'm freaking poor. To come to find out that this is to be a genie instead, and he of course is to go on and grant this woman wishes. To the point of we now have Galton, who's like, oh man, like, I'm gonna get everything that I want. I'm gonna get the love of this man that I want. I'm gonna start strutting around. And so Galton does get in an affair with Mustafa, and Mustafa is trying to tell Galton to like hide this, that she is to become pregnant. And so Golden is not hiding her pregnancy. Instead, she's just showing it off to everybody. Like, heck yeah, like, I'm going to have the kid that's going to be the next king. So, we all of a sudden have, like, Solomon, who is to start to get paranoid about his own son, who is Mustafa. And so Solomon goes on to take his son into this camp and have him like be grabbed in the air by these strings, and they go on to like tear him to pieces. And like his head falls, his arms fall. Like this is to kind of just be like just kind of like rip and have all these body parts just fall to the wayside. So after it seems that we have to have a number of people all fleeing from this palace, come to find out we have Galton, who is to hide away and is to never go on and finish her final wish, which then leads the djinn back into the bottle yet again to then find his next suitor, his next person that is going to go on and do these three wishes. And so 100 years has passed after that moment. And so we of course have the djinn, who is to take that time and like pray to the gods, is to get upset, is to get angry, is to not know about meditation or any number of things, because that's a modern day thing that this djinn cannot go on and use to try to figure out how to get some kind of sleep within this time period, because how could he? So, and plus this guy isn't really like consistently up to date with the changing of times, but it seems that he is aware of who he's going to try to lure to his bottle next. So the next people that end up getting close to this bottle are two brothers named Murad IV, or Murad the Fourth, and Ibrahim, which sounds like Abraham to me. I got a little confused. So come to find out, it seems like Ramad is to really be this very angered man, to the point of him getting bloodthirsty. And so Ramad is to try to have people like be sent out to try to soothe the savage beast here, by going on and sending him in storytellers or comedians or jesters or like somebody that can go on and like give Ramad some escapism from his bloodlust. And so at some point, we do finally have Ramad, who finds this one man who seems to be very good at storytelling, to the point of Ramad, who is to be laughing and be captivated by this man. And so we then also have Ibrahim, who seems to have a hefty is a horrible word. And I shouldn't have used that there. Ibrahim has a fantasy, that is a more correct word, about women who are to be of a fairly large caliber or size. And because he is to, I guess, be a man who is to be satisfied with better pushing for the cushion or something like that. Like, meaning that this guy is to think that he is to be better satisfied by a woman larger than he is. And so this guy is to go on and measure all of these women and is to have a whole room where he is consistently going to town on these women. Even to the point of when Ramad is to seek Ibrahim out, I would definitely not go on and shake this guy's hand, because this guy has some juice on his freaking hand, to where he, like, is to put his hand outside this door, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be touching that no! He has some juice! That's some juice there. Good God, man. So we have at some point where we're having the Jinn who is trying to figure out which brother he can use to lure these men to him, and come to find out what ends up happening is instead we have a girl named Sugarlump, one of Ibrahim's special women, and it seems that this woman is to have accidentally fallen and is to somehow break loose the Jinn, and Sugarlump is to open up this bottle, and the Jinn is like, hey, wish now, wish all these wishes, do them right now. And Sugarlump is like, well, I wish that, like, that you weren't here, that I never met you. And the Jinn is like, no. We also have Ramad the Fourth, that was to lose his storyteller. The storyteller got old and died. And so Ramad the Fourth, now with his bloodlust coming back to the surface, Ramad is to go on and kill and murder, and at some point probably get killed. And so, like, that's like the gist of most of that story. So we then go on to, of course, the Jinn's final person before he goes on and meets with Alithia. And so, come to find out, this girl is Zafir. And this is actually a real cool part of this movie, and I really liked this. We had Zafir, who is to be this woman, who is to be this inventor. And so when the Jinn is to meet up with this inventor, he is to see all these wonderful like little toys that she is to come up with, and like all these like flying devices and this kind of like visual thing where it can kind of spin round and round and you can kind of see into this and like, wow, like this is really cool, this is so fascinating. And so we of course have this Jinn break down to this woman, like, okay, hey, you're gonna go on and you're gonna need to do these three wishes. What do you got? So Zephyr's or Zelfir's first wish is that she wants to be all knowledgeable. That she wants to go on and learn every single like astronomy, math, physics, science, whatever, what have you, all in one like fell swoop of thing. And that also Zephyr is I think I said Zelfir. It's Zephyr. Zefir. But I think I'm pronouncing it in the way of which that this movie wanted me to pronounce it. Anyways, so this character is going to wish to be all knowledgeable, and so the further and further the Jinn is to try to find all of this knowledge for this woman and explain all of this to her, the more and more it seems that these two are to be connected together to the point of them being in love. In between the times where Severe is to have to go on and seduce men so that maybe she can afford her new invention, keep the lights on, not quite sure. So, metaphorically speaking, within this time period, meaning, like, this girl probably, like, there's still, like, candles having to be lit, so on and so forth. So, we go on to find out that Selphir is to at some point get the Jinn to help her through the times of which that she is to satisfy this man, and that all of a sudden leads to this man wanting to come after Zelfir more and more, asking her like, hey, how are you, like, hey, can we do this again? And Zephyr is like, no, like, because I want to be with just me and this Jinn, and because I'm happy that way. So we go on to realize that finally Zelfir is to want to forget that the Jinn ever existed and that she was to go on and get any of these wishes, because it comes down to that. And so the Jinn grants this one's wish, but then again, he is to realize that he is still having to go on and need another person to find to grant these three wishes, because the last wish is to be a wish that goes on and derails all the others. So, we also had the genie that was to go on and tell Alithia that she can't go on and wish for endless wishes. And, like, that also was like, oh man, like, they really thought this through when they were kind of giving her the rules. And I was like, yeah, of course somebody's going to go on and be like, well, like, my first wish is that I want 50 other wishes. And then it would just be like, no, doesn't work that way. Thanks, though. But so, now we have it come back to Alithia here. So, Alithia, considering she can't come up within her brain significant wishes, we also have the Jinn that needs to grant a wish that is to give in to Alithia's deepest desires. It can't just go on and be like, hey, you want a Big Mac and a Coke? kind of like in Bedazzled with the whole Seven Wishes thing. We also had like Wish Upon, and we also have Wish movies like Wishmaster, and like there's a bunch of really great Wish movies that I think people don't know about, and but this probably isn't one of them. But there's some good ones out there, and also like the Wishmaster. I guess I should have said in the beginning. Really similar to this, but it takes a more horror, dark and gross direction at certain points. But it's a very similar story. But I always like to kind of break that in, and especially this is to be the easy comparison. So, because Wes Craven did the first one, and then after that, other people went on and did that film. Like Kane Hodder, the guy who went on and did a number of like Jason movies, he's also in the one of the Wishmasters. And I was like, yeah, Kane Hodder. So, anyways, so Alithea. Alithea is to start to make jokes about all that she wants, that she wishes to get a drink of tea, and that she wishes to eat another bite of this food. And the djinn is like, I'm not going to grant any of those wishes. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, Alithea is to finally tell the djinn, it's like, well, since we're at a crossroads here, how about this? Alithea is to make a legitimate wish that she wants to go on and have the djinn fall in love with her because she loves him. And the djinn is like, okay, granted. But now you have to come up with other wishes. So, Alithea and the djinn are to consistently be together. It seems that at certain points the djinn is to help out Alithea with her studies at certain points, and they are to be lovers, to where Alithea is to come home to the djinn, just be like, okay, like, what did you see today? Like, what did you experience today? And so the djinn, it seems, is to be a transmitter, to start like connecting to all of these signals and all of these things, so he's getting this constant like feed into his body, his brain, his whatever. And so at some point this escalates to where the djinn is to want to figure out how to cut this off. And so the djinn gets to a point where he is to become very ashed out, and Alithea is to find the djinn and is to be asking if he's okay. Like, I wish you to be alive. I wish you to go back home. And so the djinn goes on and grants all those things, and so the djinn goes back to its realm, its place where it's supposed to be, so then he can finally rest. But the djinn from time to time does go back to Earth and visits Alithea and tries to be with her until, like, she, of course, is to die, and then tries to even see her beyond that. So, like, we have, like, this eternal love that could last forever. And so, like, that's the way the movie just kind of finishes up here. So, with that said, I tried to kind of quickly cover all this movie, because a lot of people are just like, seriously, I don't want to be, like, having a whole hour worth of this movie. Plus, it's fairly easy to explain when you can kind of get the rhythm down of where this movie is going. But man, is like, it just really you have to go on and really understand what's like unique about certain characters, so that way it can help you through the rest of the story, or otherwise you're gonna be like really lost in this film. Uh, but yeah, so I think I'm gonna go on and try to just get out of here so I can put this out. So, so with that said, yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Hopefully, I said everything. So, goodbye.